Hey there. So I thought I'd do a series of short videos to help bring the team up to speed on climate technologies as we're thinking about investing in the space. So the first big category that I wanted to talk about is mitigation technologies. So I think in general, when we talk about climate tech, we're talking about climate mitigation technologies. That is all of the technologies that help us reduce greenhouse gases, including renewable energy, including electric vehicles, including energy efficiency, all of the above. So when we talk about mitigation technologies, it's generally broken into roughly 5 sectors. First, we have the energy sector. Now, this is the generation technologies like wind and solar and geothermal. It's also all of those technologies that help utilities, transmission and distribution technologies that increase the efficiency and reduce the loss of electricity as it moves from the generation point to the house. The next category is transportation. So we all know about electric vehicles. That's our light duty vehicles and decarbonizing those. But there's also decarbonization of medium and heavy duty vehicles. There's also carbonization of marine and aviation. So that's everything from small recreational boats to very large shipping containers and commercial aircraft. And then also in transportation, we have things like mode shift. So bikes and scooters, and how do we drive less and use trains, bikes, walking more. The next category is buildings. So when we're talking about buildings, it's generally the building envelope. So we want to make sure that it's efficient, energy efficiency. So we're not heating or cooling the outside when we just want to be comfortable indoors. It's also talking about HVAC systems. Are there better ways to turn on and off our HVAC systems and do demand response? And then there's also a question of building materials. Are we using materials that are the most carbon efficient as possible, or are we potentially sequestering carbon by, for example, using wood, timber, instead of concrete and cement? So the next section, or the next category, is something called AFLU. It stands for Agriculture, Forestry, and Land Use. You may also hear those letters in a different combination, and also recognize that the older version of AFLU was called LULUCF, another crazy acronym, land use change, and forestry. Essentially, it's all the same thing, just depending on the generation in which you're talking about it. So agriculture, forestry, and land use, we're talking about carbon sequestration in agriculture. We're talking about reducing deforestation where we can, and the technologies that might be able to help us identify areas where we could reduce deforestation. And we're talking about afforestation and restoration in areas where that's appropriate. So then the last category is industry. This is typically and historically has been the area that has been the hardest to abate. So talking about industry, we're talking about concrete and cement, iron and steel manufacturing, getting that high heat and using fossil fuels to do it in order to produce the iron and steel. And then we're also talking about advanced recycling, critical minerals, and recovery of those minerals. Figuring out a better way to get the minerals out of the battery in an iPhone, for example. So those are the 5 general categories. That's energy, transportation, buildings, agriculture, forestry, and land use, and industry. There's also an other bucket that is talking about reducing emissions, greenhouse gas emissions that aren't carbon. It's also talking about carbon capture, use, and sequestration, CCUS, which also is one of those acronyms that used to be a different acronym but means the same thing, capturing the carbon that is generated from the use of fossil fuels when fossil fuels need to be used in energy generation or in industry, for example, and figuring out how to sequester that carbon so that it's not in the atmosphere. And then also in this other bucket is things like management and reporting. So, how do we make it more efficient and more accurate for people to know how much carbon is being emitted and get in control of that carbon across the 5 sectors? So, thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you soon.